What is synchronicity and how did the concept first come into existence? Perhaps more importantly, does its existence change everything we think we understand about reality? Just a quick reminder to like and subscribe as it helps the channel greatly. Now, back to the video. In the spring of 1925 in Zurich, Switzerland, Carl Jung was sitting in his office with a client. The client was sharing a dream she had had about a golden scarab beetle. This was a particularly significant dream because she was experiencing a deep moment of transformation in her own life, and the scarab beetle was an ancient symbol of transformation in Egyptian mythology. At that moment, something started banging on the window, and to both of their astonishment, a scarab beetle flew into the room. Not only was the timing of this uncanny given the discussion of the patient's dream, but scarab beetles were not typically found in the spring or in Zurich. This is one of the most famous examples of a phenomenon that Jung repeatedly observed. This phenomenon was the strange and uncanny experience of an inner experience being mirrored within the physical world. What's more is that these experiences were deeply significant to the individual experiencing them. Jung hypothesized that meaning itself wasn't simply a personal and emotional experience, but that it served as a kind of principle which linked the psychological and emotional to the physical. To be clear, it wasn't implied that thoughts could just suddenly change the physical world, but rather the psychological and physical world seemed to mirror each other in a mysterious and holistic fashion. This was tracked over many clients who would report strange experiences connecting the inner and outer world. This would often occur in relation to dreams in which patients dreamt of an object or scenario, only to experience it in real life shortly thereafter in unusual circumstances. For example, another one of his patients dreamt of receiving a recipe book as a gift, and later that day her friend gifted her a cookbook. So what is happening here? Is this really just a repeating case of coincidences, or does it reveal something much stranger about the nature of reality? Well, as bizarre as this idea may sound, it actually overlaps with revelations of quantum mechanics. This isn't direct proof, however the correlations are curious to say the least. First, we have what is called non-locality and entanglement. This is the phenomenon of two particles instantaneously influencing each other's state, no matter the physical distance. For example, let's say two entangled particles, such as photons, light particles, are separated many miles apart. The photons are then measured in their polarization, which means the wave oscillations of the photon are measured as it travels through space. The wave oscillations can vary and change. For example, they could oscillate vertically or horizontally. What was observed was that the moment one photon changed its oscillation direction, so did the other photon despite being many miles away. This echoes the synchronistic principle because these particles are affecting each other despite their great distance. In other words, events are meaningfully affecting each other without a direct causal link across time and space. Another strange phenomenon revealed in quantum mechanics is what is known as the observer effect. This was famously demonstrated in the double slit experiment. This revealed that particles actually behave differently if they are being observed. In this experiment, particles are fired at a barrier that has two slits. When the particles are not being directly measured as to which slit they pass through, they are detected by the scanner as passing through both slits at the same time. They read more like a wave, and the particles are detected as being in a wide range of positions simultaneously. What's fascinating is that when they fire the particles at the barrier and use detectors to directly observe which slit they pass through, the wave-like behavior collapses. The particles behave like individual particles moving through one slit or the other. So when they are observed directly, they no longer spread out across the many possible positions, but become singular and remain in one location. Some interpretations of this suggest that consciousness itself affects the outcome of quantum events. Much like the concept of synchronicity, it points to the idea that the observer is directly involved with their experience of reality, echoing the idea that the interpretation and observation of the individual gives rise to meaningful events. This points to the idea of a participatory universe in which the individual and reality are somehow affecting each other. Quantum theory implies that the universe is not simply a collection of isolated parts. Instead, it suggests that they are all interconnected in a way that the parts cannot be understood in isolation from each other. This infers that reality is much more holistic, that it is a kind of interwoven matrix. From this perspective, synchronicity begins to make a lot more sense. While quantum theory doesn't directly support the concept of synchronicity, It overlaps with it closely and gives some idea of what might be occurring during these synchronistic events. Jung noticed that a lot of his patients would have these synchronicities at critical points in their therapy. They would occur during critical breakthroughs which would affirm their growth and development. A confirmation of sorts from the external world of their inner development. In fact, I myself have experienced many of these moments. For example, a number of years ago I had just attended a recovery group. On my way home, miles away from the group, I found a piece of paper on the street a block from my house, which had writing on it directly related to the group I had just attended. This was a deeply significant moment for me, and I kept the piece of paper as a reminder. It encouraged me greatly on my own journey of development to keep going. In fact, I have had many friends experience similar things on their own journeys at significant moments. Uncanny encounters and experiences happening to them at just the right moment. What's fascinating about this is not only the phenomenon itself, but the effect it has on the people having them. One experience of synchronicity can truly change an individual's life, pointing to its significance. This continues the idea that meaning itself acts as a kind of force in these moments. It appears that the individual's inner world, the meaning attached to their specific experience and journey, influences their lived experience of the physical. This challenges a lot of assumptions about objective reality. In fact, it reintroduces the idea of free will in an exciting and somewhat intimidating way. What if everything happening within us, our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, is being mirrored in some way in reality? If this is the case, in even a small way, it rests a large responsibility on our shoulders. In fact, it suggests just how important inner work really is. The process of individuation speaks to the development of psychological maturation and involves making the unconscious conscious. This is a crucial process because it allows a person to have more conscious control of their experience and the ability to move through the world in greater congruence with themselves, meaning that they are aligned within their psyche and not divided. Contemplating on the concept of synchronicity and the discoveries of quantum mechanics, this process of individuation takes on a whole new level of importance. From this perspective, an individual remaining largely unconscious of themselves and divided within will not only cause them internal suffering, but also external. On the other hand, the commitment to inner development and healing opens up tremendous possibilities of how our lives could actually transform as we do. In fact, it seems the two are interwoven and compound upon each other. This gives a whole new meaning to Carl Jung's famous quote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.